So heading into the last session of the day, before we then go into our fantastic awards ceremony, which I hope you're all really excited for, we now have our last session of the day, which is the digitization of finance and how companies can adapt to meet the new digital economy. We're going to be hearing from Christoph Boden from Tradeshift and also Dennis Krivakov from DHL. So looking forward to hearing their presentation, and that's coming up for you just now.
All right, thank you, Alan, and welcome, Dennis. Really happy to be with you here, even if it's virtually. Always great to have a customer and having a conversation about digitalization of finance, especially in the P2P space. So very, very, very close to everything that has been discussed so far. Before we get into it, I think that everybody knows DHL, but tell us more about DHL Global Forwarding and what it is, and what's your mission and values, and what is it that you're trying to achieve in this specific unit of DHL?
Yeah. Thank you, Christoph. Absolutely. And I think you mentioned something virtual. I think this is the name of the game these days, isn't it? Everything seems to be virtual. So a digital embrace in one sense. But absolutely, I mean, DHL, what we do is we're connecting people and improving lives. And I suppose this couldn't be more topical and couldn't be more true, given the time and the day we're living in as well, where so much it depends on getting your goods and services delivered to you on time, on track. And this is what we do, and we've been doing it for quite some time. It's amazing to think as well that suddenly I work for an industry that is so well known, so well respected as well. And everybody seems to be like, oh, wow, you work for the DHL. You guys must be really busy right now. And we definitely are, I must admit.
Yeah, no, you probably are. But tell us more about yourself and your role within the company. I mean, you're the head of the P2P process, so really, heart of everything we're talking about here. Why suddenly DHL thought that needed to have you and your team, because I know that you have a pretty important team around you, that really needed to focus on that. Was it something that came with COVID, or was it already existing in the company and just got different level of attention? Tell us a bit more about the history behind the position and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. What I do is I look after the process for P2P within DHL, both the process, the adherence of it, the digitalization initiatives. We have a centralized team in India, as well as obviously finance users in every country, but a centralized team in India. That's a really key asset for us. We have a centralized process, a global operating model. We can adapt quickly as well. We can introduce new changes, new process initiative. And to be honest, again, I'll refer to the COVID situation. This has been really key for us to have our centralized team who are also remote, but working with each country, with each region. And they were doing this really successfully. The tower itself, as we call it, the P2P tower, that has been something around for a while. It has gone through a lot more transformation compared to other towers within our organization, let's say controlling or the accountant. But that is just given the nature. I think P2P by general takes the most benefit from all the digitalization that we're going through. If I think, and I worked in pretty much every area within DHL and all the finance aspects, as well as outside. But I can really see P2P or accounts payable taking the most advantage from all the digitalization. When I think of RPAs, all the various EDI connections, different workflows, and just in general process automation.
So what's during COVID, I'm really interested to understand what has changed, what didn't change, and what is going to come back, quote unquote, as it was in the past. Although I don't think that we're going to go back in the past anytime soon. But tell us more about, in specifically on the procure to pay, right? What is it that you've seen really drastically different because of the pandemic, and how it changed actually your business?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I mean, we really moved in such a short time from office work to homework. And we did it in a really sustainable and efficient manner, I must admit. Tradeshift, as it happens, was a key partner for us to doing that. If you think about it, so many invoices were coming through the actual office floors, right? We started off our Tradeshift journey just maybe 2 years before COVID hit in that situation. And we already had a good solid backbone for most of our invoices coming through for our main vendors coming through digitally. So we were not relying on being in a physical location, receiving physical documents to process them and keep our business running. Yeah. So that was a major change for us. Um,
That's super interesting. I know that you have a set of metrics by which you judge, whether or not the program is delivering the value.
mm,
And if my memory serves me well, you actually overachieve those metrics that you had initially. Can you tell the people out there how do you measure success? What good looks like when you're trying to implement those solution in a company as big as DHL?
yeah, absolutely. We did overachieve our success or a goal, a target that we set out initially with Tradeshift. For us, one of the key measurements, or for me personally, is to see from start to result how quickly we can onboard our vendors, how easily it is to persuade them and work with them to get them onto our connections, to get their invoices submitted properly. And then for us, we can see the results very quickly within our own organization. So the sale for us was rather simple within our organization. We could all see and feel the benefits very quickly. But we really moved, to 30% of our main carrier volumes. We're looking at 40% this year and a little more perhaps next year in our forecast as well. So we're really turned around. And, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of invoices worldwide here within a space just over 2 years.
Wow. You said something that I want to bounce back from, and that's something that we at Tradeshift face every day. So you and I, have conversation commercially, and you acquired a platform, and off we go, and we implement it in your infrastructure. But the success comes from the fact that suppliers will onboard on the platform, right? If it doesn't matter how good the solution is and how it is, implemented. If the suppliers are not coming on the platform, it doesn't really drive any value, right? Now, those sellers, they didn't ask for a change. They were,
Mm-hmm.
on their own, and suddenly you come up and say, hey, now you have to be on this and that. How do you drive adoption, and what are the good, the bad, and hopefully there hasn't been too much ugly here, but what is it that you've done to actually attract them, and actually how did we help you attracting them on the platform?
Yeah. That's a loaded question. I want to maybe even come in from two aspects of that. I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly. For us, um, we haven't had that much resistance from our suppliers to onboard. Yeah, our most major carriers, the big suppliers for us that we're talking about hundreds and thousands of invoices a month, they really saw the light quickly. Yeah, for us, one thing we need to consider as DHL, we are the market leader. Yeah, so for
Mhm.
us, we need to change ourselves first of all, but we need to also to encourage and bring others on that change journey with us. So if we're seeing digital invoicing is the future and we can justify why, I mean, I'm even bringing the ESG aspect here, the social and the governance aspect of it. I mean, nobody wants to move paper invoices anymore. It's expensive, it's inefficient, and it's not friendly as well to our environment, right? So we are really talking about a real smart process of how to deal with a rather automated steps if you really break them down. So eventually the big players can see that, and the smaller guys, well, they follow along as well, right? Because there is a benefit for them to submit the invoices to us as quickly as possible, for us to receive them with no disputes. So nobody is talking anymore, well, it got lost in a post, or I've sent it to this email. There are connections, and they're stable. I mean, we haven't had much issues with them.
Yeah, so you said something, and I was laughing here because that reminds me, of course, of the typical use case where it's like, hey, I send the invoice and nobody can find it again, right? Right, that's the old thing here. Is it the main advantage, or is it clear payment, clear tracking, compliance, all of the above? If you had to rank a bit, the all the pluses, what makes it to the top of the list versus the bottom of the list in terms of value to the business?
Yeah, so we're using two of your products, right? We have the EDI connections with the vendors submitting their invoices, and we're using another one of your products called Engage. And what Engage does
Mhm.
essentially gives back to the vendors a portal where they can go in and view the status of all of their invoices, what is submitted, whether it's been received, processed, disputed, paid, etc. Right? For us, at the moment, we have implemented this as a latest addition this year. We've seen already great benefits, and we're now working with our partners to encourage them on how to actually use that properly. We don't want them anymore calling us and saying, hey, what's the status of this invoice? Have you received it, etc. I mean, there is a platform. It's a centralized tool. It's rather clear. It's, again, a digital platform. It's the way of the future, I suppose. And we really want to build onto that, even with our non-connected vendors as well, and to also bring them on board that way.
So we all hate when we get called from the suppliers about an invoice. Did you really see a big drop in that people were going to engage in the platform and look at their don't call again about where the invoices are, or you still see some DNA about, hey, I need to get in touch with somebody versus
Uh,
looking at the platform?
There is absolutely that. It's ingrained in people. Pick up the phone and ring. Where's my invoice? When am I going to get paid? So this is going to be a gradual process. For us, it's very early days. We've only implemented it in all of our Tradeshift countries since the beginning of March this year. So it's going to be a gradual process. Perhaps in the next 3 months, I will give you a more accurate figure to see where we're at. And I'll be curious to see myself as well. We do obviously have a measurement. But I truly believe this is going to be the future. And I truly believe some of the younger companies are more accustomed to this.
How many you mentioned countries here? How many countries are you getting invoices from at the moment?
So at the moment, we have some 30 countries on Tradeshift Live, and we have another 6 or 8 in the pipeline this year. So it's going to be a relatively solid chunk of our business as well. And most of our major countries as well, I'm thinking about US and UK's and Germany's as well, they are already on Tradeshift platforms. So, I mean,
Well, you're really using the platform to its large extent. Where we have compliance in 52 countries, so you're covering
mm,
most of them here. And I think, by memory, we have 98 countries where customers are getting invoices from. Because in some countries there is no compliance. I learned not long ago that actually was the case in Afghanistan. I didn't know that some customers were using the product to get invoices coming out of Afghanistan. So if you think about your business, let's get out of the platform now and Tradeshift, but think
yeah.
about your business. What is it that has fundamentally changed in the transport and logistics? I mean, now we're relying more than ever on the supply chain and the transport and the logistics. Everybody is buying anything from everywhere. It doesn't matter where it is. So, which is, I guess, good news for you guys. But what is it that
Mhm.
has changed drastically in your business that changes basically, the way you work?
Uh, there's two things perhaps. The immediate one would come to mind would be securing the capacity, securing the ocean freight containers, securing the airline capacity. All of that has dropped drastically over the last years. I mean, I'm thinking of airline; they're down 90% with just how many planes are in the air, right? But the goods necessarily haven't changed, and what we need to transport and how. I mean, I'm even thinking of the COVID vaccines. We have to charter out entire planes to move that from one country to another to make those deliveries. This is one aspect of it. I suppose the more social aspect is I'm thinking about trust. Trust within our own organizations. We are all working digitally now. I mean, I haven't been in the office this year at all. In fact, for the last 12 months, I've only been in the office once. and that was only to pick something up. So there is certain trust that we as employees, as colleagues and peers have with one another. We also have the trust then within our customers, that they trust us for us to do what we promised we would, despite the difficult times, despite the container not being there, or trying to organize an extra difficult situation and work around it. I mean, we think about Brexit as well. That adds complexity. So it's having that trust, that network, and obviously then trust within our partners, our suppliers, our vendors. You guys, Tradeshift, right?
How did it change? I mean, a bit of a personal question here. What did it change for you as a person? I know that, for me personally, I've always been in planes all the time. Accumulating miles by the hundred of thousands, and I don't think that I've been on a plane for business reason for more than 13 or 14 months now.
Yeah.
And that I didn't even think that it would have been possible after 30 years of living on a seat on a plane. What did it change for you personally? What is it that has changed in your life that is worth mentioning?
Yeah. Well, the aspect you mentioned, absolutely. As it happens in my previous role within DHL, I held a regional role, and one of the portions of that role, I was the finance trainer for Europe. And as a result, I had to travel around in quite a lot of countries regularly, giving updates, training sessions, other ongoing initiatives. So all of that stopped suddenly drastically. Then I was moved into my role that I'm in right now. But personally, I suppose I really became my own manager more. I have
Oh,
to learn, even to this day, I have to learn how to stop. Um, now I'm not too sure whether that's just me, a part of my personality, but I find it easy to go overtime and to work and to maybe spend a little more time on certain initiatives and to reach out, because we're a global company. You probably see behind me there's a bunch of clocks.
yeah,
There's always somebody online. There's always somebody that can reach out and bounce a few ideas or check in on a particular result. So for me, it's managing that. Okay, it's time to stop. It is that time. you know
yeah, yeah. We do have
so
a
I'm
tendency
definitely
to stay
learning
on
that.
all the time. Yeah, we have a
You
tendency to
got it.
stay on all the time, right? It never the frontier between the personal and the professional life
Yeah.
it's not there anymore almost. Let's go back to your implementation and your the project that you've been running for the past 2 years now, even a bit more. Looking back, um, what is it that you would do differently? What are the things that you've learned in the process that if you had to do it again, you would do this or that differently? What are they?
Yeah. I think for us, up to a particular point, we were on a steady climb up, and then you slowly hitting that plateau where suddenly it's becoming more difficult to not necessarily onboard the vendors, but the whole process slowly changes. I think that interest in the countries, in the regions, well, we already achieved that target, or slightly even overachieved. Most of our vendors are sending this, so there's less hunger to onboard and to look for more potential. So it's that drive now that we're finding ourselves, not to be in the still water, but to still keep
Mm-hmm.
going the momentum, still keep going and get to the most that we can with Tradeshift and our EDI potential. I mean, it's not going to cover, we know that 100% of our invoices, but if we feel it is 50, 60%, that we should get to that rather quicker. And it gives us that flexibility then as well to pursue other projects, to pursue other initiatives. Um, so
Yeah, no, but
it's not
people
so
are
much
getting in the
a
routine,
lesson
right?
learned. You got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are getting in the routine, and they're getting used. So the excitement is kind of going down, and it's how we keep the ball rolling, right? As we say here in the U.S. I'm based in California, but it's really as we keep that ball rolling, right? Which is not it's not easy because
No.
it's change management. Tell us a bit more about change management. How did you drive change within the company, right? Because now it's new business processes, it's new way of working, and on top of that, I got a pandemic where I'm stuck at home. How did you drive change within the company?
One thing I admire about DHL, and I've been here close to 8 years, it for such a large company, we do adapt to change quickly and we respond to change quickly. And I think a big key of that, again, I will comment the team in India, having a centralized team, having standard operating models as well. So when we change one thing to a process, or maybe even an entire new process, it trickles down through the business rather quickly. So for us, that change, I mean, there's at the moment possibly 3 or 4 different initiatives that we've implemented. We're looking to continue to automate and digitalize our vendor creation process, the vendor reconciliation process as well. So most of the routine standard things, and I think the business has a certain hunger for that, to change, to keep going and adapt. And I think if we stop and have that time of, well, there's very little change, again, I think countries and people and users will become complacent. So having that constant forward driving motion, I mean, we're not an IT company, let's put it this way, in any sense, but we do have a lot of digitalization, a lot of IT initiatives, and in my experience, I think the country users really appreciate that we are staying with the mainframe. We're not getting fallen behind in any of the areas.
Have you noticed any differences based on countries or geo where things are getting more accepted or less accepted, or did you find that it's pretty homogeneous across the world, or did you see any differences across the world?
Yeah, most definitely. Only this week, we held a survey with 3 regions, with Asia Pacific, Europe, and well, actually EMEA and US, and we got quite a different result on a particular set of processes and KPIs as well. So most definitely, I think for us personally, Europe is the hardest customers. Even though we are a European-based company, I mean, our headquarters is in Germany, in Bonn. Yeah, Europe for us is the hardest customers. US for us, by nature, I think maybe they get more sunshine, but they're very happy with the processes, with what is being delivered and developed as well from headquarters. And Asia Pacific, they're quite skeptical as well. They can be quite careful operators over there. So we definitely see that.
Interesting. So now let's project ourselves in the future. What's next? I mean, you mentioned a few projects that you're starting now. What's next in your digitalization here? Where do you
Yeah.
go?
Absolutely. I mean, we must continue to strive to maintain our market leadership position. And as a result, I mean, we've already seen a digital infrastructure. It's been a great backbone to us. It's been a proved and resilient model for us in this year. In fact, as a result of all the digitalization initiatives we've carried out over the last 3, 4, 5 years, perhaps, this is why when the pandemic hit and suddenly the world came to a stop, we were able to continue to move, to deliver, to support our customers, support our staff all around the world as well. So for us to continue on this digitalization roadmap is absolutely key, to make the routine tasks more autonomous. So allowing our operators, finance users to really focus on the value add tasks. So I would see that definitely as a short-term future,
Yeah,
mid-term future.
you say something here that is really resonating with me, which is making sure that the routine tasks, the tasks that don't have a lot of value, are totally
Yeah.
automated. Because you don't want that precious resource that are what we can do as human on
Mhm.
those tasks that are not delivering a lot of value. You want people to work on things that are actually adding a lot of value, right? So that digitalization helps you making sure that those routine tasks are actually taken care by machines and programs, right?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
All right, we're getting towards the end, and I want to make sure that there's enough time for questions. I'm pretty sure that people would like to ask us question here, but one last question for me. And I'm going to ask for your word of wisdom here. What I mean by that is, I'm pretty sure that in the audience are people looking at, starting projects that are similar to, or are in the middle of project or very similar to yours. What is it that you want to leave them with as a nugget, something that you want to give them that will make them more successful, and that they need to watch for in order to make sure that their project is successful? What is it that you want to give them?
That's a good question. I'm slightly unprepared for this one, but if I think now to personal experience, I think having a strong team, having that trust and that relationship with your team is really key. I often say behind any achievements or anything you think you've achieved, always look back. There's at least five people who have contributed greatly to that. And it's the same with every project, with any initiative. Really having that team so you can do collectively. And that would be my
Yeah,
suggestion.
no, having the right team is important. At the end of the day, it's a team sport, right? So thank you so much, Dennis. That was a very rich conversation, and we're going to open it up for questions.